Hello, everyone, and welcome to Gathering Conversations podcast. It is November the 29th, the day after Thanksgiving. Hope everyone had a good Thanksgiving together. We ate a lot of food, and my family came by, and we really did enjoy ourselves. We are going to do episode number 7 today. We're talking about, continuing with this conversation with my son-in-laws about the state of the church today. And the title of our conversation is The Best We Can Be. And we really do look into ways in which we as Christians today, are we living to our full potential? And are we being really the best we can be? And we talk quite a bit about where it can be found in Jeremiah 9:24, 1 Timothy 1:5, and throughout the entire Bible, what I call the big three, which is who God is, and that is loving kindness, judgment, and righteousness. In our day and age today, we spend a lot of time talking about God's love and how we should be loving. But our response to that should be the same. Our response to his loving kindness should be love. But then we should have discernment, which would be response to his judgment. And we should strive for righteousness, which really comes through our faith in him, and placing our faith in him. We will not be righteous in any way. All our righteousness are as filthy rags unless we do it through Christ. So the big three is what we talk about quite a bit. It's just a really good conversation about what the church should be. And then if I really get to work this week, I'll try and do that. We'll get some editing done this week, and I will get to our conversation we had with John Boris. He shares his testimony. It's a very powerful testimony about just how God works in humiliation, putting us in our place and at a place where we can be used of him. And a very good testimony. You'll be looking forward to that. That'll be next week. So let's get started today.
Let's dive into the Gathering Conversations podcast. We're here to have genuine conversations about understanding what it means to be a Christian and how to live a truthful life that pleases him. Our goal is to equip others to share the teachings of Christ with others. So let's jump into today's conversation.
First Corinthians 12:31, the Bible says, "But covet earnestly the best gifts, and yet show I unto you a more excellent way." We as a church body today should not be seeking to do it our way, the way we want, the way our group wants. We should be striving to be well-pleasing unto the Lord, and that will be a more excellent or best, the good, better, best way to do what we do, whatever we do. Jeremiah 9:24 describes who God is, and man should respond to God the way it says in 1 Timothy 1:5. This is loving kindness, judgment, and righteousness. We will have a first principle conversation about legalism, what it really is. We will also talk about the model that progressives use, the way they always try and move the majority.
But let's talk about good, better, best just a little bit. Have I ever shared with you, some of you guys, a Disney story? Maybe. All right, I'll go ahead and share
Yeah,
it. I think I've shared it with you.
I don't remember what it was, but
I've shared it with you.
Share with me.
Some of you probably know, if you've been to Disney and stuff, they have all these tunnels that run underneath so that Mickey can run and be at the certain places at the certain times. They strive to be the best amusement park in the world. And they've worked to say, how can we become the very best one? They train their people super, super well so that they can be the best. And the way they train their people is they survey the customer covertly and study all the questions that the customer asks every day. And then when they get new employees, they train them on what the answers to those questions are. So in other words, they know the answer to the question before you ask it. They've trained this new employee. Oh, they told me they were going to ask this question. That's what makes them the best, because they already know those answers. The number one question they get asked every day is, what time is the 3 o'clock parade? every day. So what's the answer to that question? It's not 3 o'clock. The answer is, what does that person really want? So they're training that employee that the person wants something more when they ask questions. The best way to answer a question is to recognize that person has a greater need. So they tell them, well, you know, does your daughter want to see Mickey or Goo Goo, or I don't know the names of the characters.
Cinderella.
Cinderella, yeah. And based on some of those answers, then they tell them, well, if you stand right over here at this spot, and if you're here at 3 o'clock, you'll get to see Mickey. You know, so it makes them the best. The second question they get asked every day, most often every day, is where's my car parked? You think about that. They have buggies that are bus size that you can put 6-8 people in, and they ask them for their timestamp on their wrist, and they can get them within about 25 feet of the Ford Taurus that they rented earlier that day, the white Ford Taurus in the parking lot. How many of those are there? But because they already know the answer to the question. So the idea is good, better, best. How do we reach for the best we can be as Christians? And that's some of my challenge for us tonight, is how do we reach to be the best Christians we can be? I'll share another story. Just as we were setting up, I went to Master Clubs when I was a young man with my kids, and Ab Thomas, he was in charge of it. And one year we were down at Regionals, and it was a great time. We had a lot of fun, great moments there. And Ab said, hey, next year I'm trying to think longevity and succession plan. I'm coming out of, I think he was coming out of the college, Tennessee Temple. And he could see the writing on the Tennessee Temple. They were becoming less conservative as he was. And financially they were starting to get into trouble. He knew that. So he said, I'm going to move to my location of Master Clubs to a different place, this place in Ohio. They have a lot going on. And then when I grow old, I can hand that to church, and the church will carry it on. So he was really thinking ahead. So he says, next year, come to Ohio, Midford, Ohio. So next year we pile in the van, we're head to Midford. We get there in the middle of the night. They put us in a high school. I wake up the next morning. I'm walking through the parking lot. I'm like, oh, 75 acres. There's buses in the back. There's brick buildings everywhere. And this deacon comes wandering down through the parking lot. And I introduce myself. And he's like, hey, you want to see our building? I'm like, yeah, let's go look at this. So we walk inside, seats 3,000 people. The hallway, the foyer area is huge. There's pictures and missionary letters along this one wall, this huge area. I count them real quick, 50 of them. I'm like, these are missionaries you guys support? And he's like, no, these are missionaries we've sent from this building. 50 of them still in the field. And the hallway was longer. There were smaller pictures of all of them that they supported. The 280, I think it was, that they supported, they'd sent 50 out of that building. And they had 75 bucks. I mean, I'm thinking, this is crazy. I said, I noticed another brick building across the parking lot. What's, he goes, you want to see it? I'm like, yeah. So we walk over there. We go in the front. There's a lobby area. We go in the back. There's a huge conveyor belt and a printing press, and they're printing Bibles. And they got maps all along the ceiling of all of the world. They're sending these Bibles. This one church is doing this. And I being real wise again and business thinker, I'm like, have you guys ever thought about like putting one of these in another country? You'd get rid of logistics. And he's like, yeah, we thought of that. He goes, we have 10 of these. And this is like a $2 million building. And we have 10 of these. And I'm like, who is your pastor? I got to meet this guy. And he goes, well, he's traveling. He's just retiring. His son-in-law is going to take over. He's starting a new ministry in his retirement. He's not here. You're not going to get a meeting. And so I waited for like 2 years. My pastor, Emmanuel, came to me one afternoon, and he said, hey, we got this guy coming out of Ohio. He's promoting his new ministry. And I'm like, that's the same guy. That's that Pastor King. I get to hear him speak now. So I was really excited that night. Sure enough, this guy shows up. Old guy, looked about like that. Had a powerful message. I don't remember what he said. Powerful message. Right at the end of the message, he said, some people would say I've done a pretty good job. We've had some good success. And he listed some of it off. He goes, $35 million in buildings in the seminary where we're at, and printing. And he said, we see not quite 3,000 people every Sunday. He said, I've run off more people than sit in that room. He goes, I could have done such a much better job if I would have, but I got in the way. He's very candid. He's like the best I've ever seen. He's the best I've ever seen. And he's like, I got in the way. I wasn't the best I could be. So that's my challenge for us tonight. It's just, how do we really ring it out that I'm going to try and be the best I can be? As I look at dealers, we do this in retail all the time. We talk about good, better, best. And you get a dealer that goes from a 6 to 8, be good to better. Do we all need a break?
No, I'll be quick.
So he's heard the story before. And then you get something that really gets to the best. It's synergetic. From good to better is a little bit. But when you get up into the best rate, it starts becoming synergetic. Even think of Abraham. He got up early in the morning. He did exactly what he should. He did the very best he could. He put a knife in his hand and was ready to kill his son. And had he not been exactly there, he would have been exactly in God's will. And that was exponentially important that he didn't kill his son. And there was a lamb right there. When Susan and I went to we were traveling, saw my dad once. And as we were traveling through, he was doing a convention of a bunch of policemen, about 600 policemen. And the policemen had a ball that night. As we pulled in that day, they were doing seminars. And I knew they were in there somewhere in one of these rooms. I pounded on the door, pulled it open, and there's a cop sitting there, and there's 600 guys in the seminar. And he's taught, and I shut the door. He's a cop. He's inquisitive. He's like, runs to the door, he opens it. Can I help you? I'm like, oh. So then I step out, he's Walter Graham here, and my dad stands up and walks out. Everybody knows I'm with this guy. And then we talked a minute, he went back in, and we went to their dinner that night. This full-blown, really nice dinner. A senator came, he spoke, and he was gonna help us save the world and stuff. He came back in. And at the end of the night, then they gave away door prizes. My dad, the guy would pull a number, and give away a door prize, and the person that came up for the prize would pull the next number. And my dad won this really nice jacket. He comes up, and then my dad pulls a number, and it was my number. And they're all, cheat, cheat, cheat. They're all yelling. It's funny. You're not supposed to be here, you know. So I got a really cool door prize, and then they did that several times. And then at the very end, there was a shotgun that was given out, and then the grand prize was a chrome-plated Pearl 357 Colt. And they pulled the number out, and they said 3356, and nobody stood up. And he's like, 3356, nobody. He's like, this is the last time I'm going to ask this. We're going to pull another number, 3356. Anybody have it? All right, pulled another number. And as we were leaving that banquet, there was 4 people, 2 couples. They were just as cool as could be, too cool for school, coolest people in the room, had gone out to the lounge to have some drinks during the senator's speech. And on the way back in, I said to the one guy, I'm like, hey, you got one of those tickets for the door prizes? He's like, yep. I'm like, what's the number? 3356. And all the people around me start laughing. And he wasn't doing anything that they considered bad. He was off having a drink in the lounge. They didn't consider that was, it was okay. It was a good thing to do as far as they're concerned. But it wasn't the best thing he could do. He wasn't in the best place he could be, and he missed out on the grand prize. And I think that's a piece of it too. Why we would want to be the very, very best we could be. So that's my challenge with us tonight. I really will slow down here a little bit and let us all start talking too. I think this is important. The 3 bigs. If you look throughout your Bible, whenever God is described, loving kindness, judgment, righteousness, very biblical. I call them the 3 bigs because you see them all over the Bible anytime he's talked about. Man is to respond to who God is and to set our churches up in the same way. Loving kindness, That's always the premier one. And so we should have pure love. I'm getting this from the Timothy verse. Pure love. God's judgment. The way we get to God's judgment is with our conscience. In righteousness, we get to there with faith. We can't become righteous ourselves. So with faith, we become Christians, and that's how we get to righteousness. But those are the big three. And you can see them throughout the Bible. I believe that's how churches should be modeled, even. I want to talk about that a little bit tonight. But as we talk about my witness, this comes into play. And Chad, you've seen me talk to you about this a little bit already. And I'll go a little deeper into it tonight. That same verse I just shared, my witness is, well, I have to try and conserve my witness. That's one of the reasons I'm conservative, is we're trying, and God asks us, God asks us to conserve His testimony. And so we try and conserve that story. I try not to mess up my witness. I'm trying to conserve what I'm doing there. There's a lot of scripture to support that as well. Same yesterday, today, and forever. He changes not. But who honoreth him and fear Jehovah, and even swear through his hurt about who he is, and change not. So we conserve. I think we're all easily willing to say we are conservative Christians. It's a good thing. When you think about a conservative, they're like the pillar over on the right. They have nowhere to go. There's an example of somebody. So what I was talking about earlier with the precept upon precept, what's true in the world will be true in the church. What's true in government will be true in the church. What's true in a town council or school board will be true in the church as well. These are precepts that will hold true. Ted Cruz has nowhere to go. He can't go any farther right. Bill Maher is really not even a progressive. He's only a liberal. And I want us to really work on this top piece and understand what an intellectually honest conversation is. If you watch that Albert Mohler at all, listen to him at all, he talks about this a lot, what an intellectually honest conversation is. When they say there's no evidence to prove that there was widespread voter fraud enough to change an election. We heard that. That was an intellectually dishonest conversation. The way it was phrased, and they very specifically phrased that. No evidence to prove that there was enough widespread voter fraud enough to turn an election. Dishonest statement. The dishonesty is it doesn't take widespread to turn an election. And so that's what this conversation is about. I want us to have an honest conversation about what these terms up here are. These are principles that always hold true. I'm ultimately trying to get to this conversation up here. So bear with me as we have this part of the conversation. So Maher, he's liberal. He's not conservative, but he's not progressive, because he actually has a balanced conversation half the time. Other than dropping a bunch of F-bombs, a lot of times he has common sense in his head. Another example might be Kid Rock. He's really a liberal, but Joe Rogan, liberal, not a progressive, liberal. I'll keep digging on this. Let me go. All abortion is murder. I'll put my picture up there. I'd be saying that. He might try and put words in his mouth that say women should have no choice. Well, if he said women should have no choice, he'd lose me. But he's not saying that. Other people might put those words in his mouth, but he has nowhere to go. He's far right. He can't get any farther right. He's got room to move. He actually sometimes sounds like the most balanced person because he's got nowhere to go. So let me give some other example of that. There's progressive, but a progressive will always come with this. I listened to Rush Limbaugh my entire life. When COVID struck, he got brain cancer, he died. He gave the first 3 points of that for 40 years. He would say that all the time. And when he got cancer and got ready to die, he said, I'm out of here, I'm going to die. For those of you who have wondered, I am a Christian. Don't worry about my eternity. I'm good to go. I should have added this years ago because they will eat their own. And during COVID, they started eating their own. Because Fauci hates him. He loathes him, but he hates him because he's balanced. I could give quotes to that, but you guys are it's resonating with you. All murder, okay? Women shouldn't have any choice. You put my picture there. I'll say that. Hillsong can teach bad doctrine. All CCM. Now I've lost my. I'll lose a few if I say all CCM is sinful. I'd lose you guys in a heartbeat. If you lose me, it's too far. I do that. I think the majority text is what we should be using. The KJV got translators were inspired. You're going to lose me. I'm not with you on that. So you go too far. The progressive person are generally trying to move the majority to someplace new. A great example of that is we're done with supper. It's time to move to the living room. It's more comfortable. I want to go. Come on. I want to progress the conversation over here. I go, one fact. It's more comfortable. Susan's like, I'm not done eating. You guys are like, we're all in here. We still haven't had dessert yet. I've only got one fact. It's more comfortable. Come on. The majority is over there. The progressive will always be pulling on a majority. So it's very important to remember that as a part of the conversation, whether we're in a Christian circle or the public circle. A great example of this happening, I saw Elon Musk in a conversation the other day. The majority of electric cars have been made by Tesla. 75% of all EVs ever made in the world made by Tesla. 2021, President invited UAW, that's the big car union, and all EV manufacturers to the White House. They were given some awards for innovation, talked about some needs and how to progress the industry forward. Guess what? Tesla was not invited. That's insane. 65% of the current market is owned by Tesla. That's like having a convention on Harleys and not inviting Harley. Are you kidding? You're not going to invite Harley to a convention on Harley on motorcycles?
And we're not.
Yeah. The award given for innovation, that car company had made 25 cars, and they got the award for innovation. Tesla makes $200,000 a year. I can give you example after example after example of progressives that will do this. They will try and not only own the conversation, they'll eliminate those, or they'll walk away from the conversation altogether. That's their practice. They walk away from a conversation, or they won't let you in the conversation at all. Get back in the Christian circle, same thing holds true. The guy at Hillsong, he got himself in trouble. He said way too much. He definitely was one of these people. He would control the narrative. He would change the definition of words, and it got him in trouble eventually.